This is Linus Lopez. We are talking in the background of the PLDC 2019 in Rotterdam. We are going to be discussing light and well-being. And today I have with me Lorraine Calcott and Nirmit Jhaveri. If we could start, Lorraine, with a little bit of a definition about this connection between light and well-being.
Certainly, I mean, light is intrinsic to humankind. We need light to function. We can't be what we are without it. So every part of our body, our cells, our infrastructure, if you like, requires that to work perfectly and healthily. And if we're not doing that and we're not having our exposure to daylight, to the outside world in the same way that we may have done hundreds of years ago, where we were outdoors more often, now we're confined in our offices, in our homes, etc. We probably get very little daylight, and therefore our bodies are maybe not using that light in the same way that we would if it was natural. And we're trying to start to move into the realms of using more natural lighting systems that are being developed on the back of the LED innovation that's happened. We're still probably a little way off of perfecting daylight, but we're getting a lot closer than we used to be, and now we can begin to use that creatively and carefully within a space and within our homes and offices, etc., to try and increase our well-being as human beings and to offset that deficit that we now don't have by going outdoors.
And I think it would also be a departure from the earlier discussion on lighting, improving efficiencies in the workspace, to improving well-being of the person.
I think both can be achieved, certainly, yeah.
Certainly linked between the well-being and the productivity. So if you are healthy, you produce better.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and you're more happier to be at work. You're more engaged with what you're doing. You're maybe more awake. So all of those things can be influenced. People have looked at healthcare, have looked at hospitals, schools, and other environments. I mean, currently I'm working on some work in prisons, etc. And how do we use light to help mood, help learning, help recovery within health, and help to maybe lessen the impact of aggression, even, say in a prison environment. So there is many pieces of research being done, all of which are leading us to believe that obviously the more exposure to a natural environment is obviously a better one. But again, we have to be really careful about how we implement that.
Nirmit, could you tell us a little bit about your experiences in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, often I hear from the client or some of the friends in architecture and design. It's mostly like what is the trend now, and what kind of light is the circadian light or biophilic light, and we have got this new product and we are going to use it in our large office project or this. And the studies which is done abroad, and now it is coming to India. So the geographical difference of daylight between these two countries, for example, the way the color temperature is perceived throughout the day is very different in our
in the
region.
tropics.
And the kind of solution that the designers are looking for is more or less similar, or the industry is trying to implement on the end user is similar. I think this particular myth about what is a good biophilic or circadian lighting is something one needs to clarify and or maybe study more.
Of course, light isn't the only thing that affects the circadian rhythm. We've got food and exercise, etc., and the body's a very complex, creature. So we're not necessarily going to just affect everything all just with the light. Once we start to look at the different wavelengths, the different aspects of spectrally specific lighting, rather than just tunable white, we can have a very medical and health-giving aspect to being bathed in that kind of light in an environment. We need to be careful about choosing whether it's tunable white, which is more on the sort of psychological effect of being in a space that has a dynamic feel to it as far as colour, temperature and intensity, or are we then looking at the spectral aspects and actually really giving the full impact of what daylight would do during the course of the day, and how you've got to understand the full range of what you're
and it's
doing.
also about like how the architecture has progressed with the daylight. Like there was less and less light ingress earlier, to now glass buildings and a lot of light ingress. And when we talk about like effects of light on human being, sunlight is the best source, but it's also the worst source to affect us physiologically if it is not moderated well. And that's, I think, coming from India. These are the more challenges we have, rather than bringing in more light, but rather filtering it. The perception of light is very subjective. It changes from person to person. So how as designer we can integrate this knowledge of personal health into a measurable solution with light.
Is this something that you have actually worked on in a project? And
in a small way, yes. I'm currently working on a project with elderly care and Alzheimer's, etc. And the rooms in which people have as their bedrooms, as their living rooms, etc. within a care facility, we're actually working on personalising the light in those sorts of environments. In the care home environment, you have people who have maybe macular degeneration, they've maybe got, other issues with their health, possibly on a lot of medication, their circadian rhythm that is out of sync and be causing a lot of problems. So by personalising the light for each room, we're hoping to achieve a better balance for each person.
The quality of light that we talk about, the movement part. The movement in light.
Dynamic quality.
Yeah, the dynamic quality, that's also very important, which is not talked about often in the light and well-being. Like in any well-being environment or healing environment, a positive distraction is always considered as a
healthy
better
thing.
cue for healing.
Let's keep doing what we're doing, but improve on it, understand it better, and have some fun with it, and try to get as close as we can to that utopia of daylight. It's not there yet, but we've got a long way to go, and I'd like to see where we can go with it.
On that happy note, there couldn't have been a better ending.